from Pastry and Cloud9's mid laner.
Thank you very much. I'm here with Jensen after a grueling series versus FlyQuest. I have to ask you, how are you feeling? Because that seems pretty exhausting.
Yeah, the last game was especially exhausting, and I think FlyQuest played really well, so it was much harder than I actually expected. So it was a rough series, so props to them.
Well, of course, well played to you guys. You stay undefeated, which may have been unexpected for you. But I have to ask just in general, did you expect Hai to be such a difficult opponent? You played with him on teams for so long. You know what he's like as a leader and a shot caller, but as a player, I mean, obviously I know you're quite good. So what were your thoughts moving in kind of in the 1v1?
Hai actually surprised me. He played a lot better than I expected, so huge props to Hai. I think his laning phase is definitely underrated. I think he's overall a really good player, and his laning phase has definitely improved, so a lot of props to him.
So with that in mind, do you feel like you clapped him sufficiently?
I wouldn't really say it was clapped, but I mean, we won, so that's good.
I guess he'll take it. Final question for you, Jensen. I know C9's been through kind of a lot of different changes in the last year and a half or so. Infrastructure changes, team changes, and of course, I think you're stepping up more as a voice in the team. How has that experience been for you, trying to be more of a leader from the mid lane, in addition to being such a great player?
It's pretty natural, I'd say, since we used to play with Hai, so I didn't really say much back then. But then now I have to take a bigger role in the team, especially when we play a lot of these 1-3-1 comps and split push comps. Especially, it's important that the mid laner or the split pushers are very vocal. So yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of given to the role. Like if you play mid lane and you split push a lot and such, you need to be vocal in the team. But it's been pretty natural to me. It's not really something that bothers me or anything.
Well, congratulations on the win today. A very long series, but a deserved win nonetheless for Cloud9. We are going to shoot it back to Freak and the analyst desk.
Thank you very much, Pastry Chime. We are here to talk about primarily differences in execution. Of course, we all know Cloud9 won, and hey, they're still undefeated, good for them. But I want to kind of jump right into what happens when you play things right versus what happens when you play things wrong.
Yep.
And when the replay comes up, we're going to talk about the before and after of the pre and post remake. This is the before version. Now note that it's invisible, it does full damage, but Lemonation didn't actually use his Void Links, so he just kind of gets bopped and it gets turned around. And then we're going to see the after version where he does press W and it looks much better.
Yeah, exactly. And the Voidlings actually add a ridiculous amount of damage for the support ult, Malzahar. So double Voidlings, flash ult, the Voidlings are hitting throughout the entire one. That was the difference in the remake kill. Not only that, but it meant, okay, so they don't die, they get a kill, they get first turret, right? These are all things that changed between the two plays, and just that small little thing where he executed properly in the second game completely changed the outcome of that fight and could have completely changed the outcome of the game.
I don't think it's an understatement to say that because they were losing a number of plays all over the map, and if that one gets turned, they don't get first turret, they probably lose first turret, and that's a huge gold swing on top of just the kills you're giving up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just to clarify for those watching online, in the before version, the Misfortune ult did deal damage. It was invisible, which is why the remake was called. If that wasn't clarified for all you guys out there, that is the reason. Did deal damage, was invisible. That was enough to cause the remake. And obviously then execution went better. FlyQuest kind of advantaged by the remade state, but that is kind of to talk about what went down.
They certainly were advantaged from it. It didn't end up mattering, but to that point, it's basically the MF ult would have been very problematic for C9 throughout the rest of the game, right? So even if the remake in that in specific instance disadvantaged them, look how much damage it was doing. And if you couldn't even see that thing in the late game, it would have been killing your whole team. So unfortunately, there had to be a remake, but obviously they did in this case.
Yeah, so you can push through to then the other half execution, which is team fighting around Misfortune. I know in my solo queue games, you run in and say, GG can't beat MF, but this is C9 doing it right, kiting out Misfortune and never grouping up and giving her the range.
Well, the big thing is with Zillion Bombs and Zyra plants, you have a lot of tools to zone the follow-up from FlyQuest. So even though Balls is trying to frontline as best he can, the rest of his team really can't walk up for any kind of follow-up. Altec does a good idea of hiding in the brush, trying to channel an ultimate, but he's not quite patient enough, waiting for the rest of C9 to approach behind Impact. So he channels his ult too soon, that triggers Impact to focus him, knock him up, cancel that ultimate. And that really is the key team fighting tool for FlyQuest. Without the MF ult shredding a number of champions on C9 side, it's very hard for FlyQuest to take a fight.
Yeah, exactly. As soon as the MF ulti is down, C9 can actually fully engage to the fight, right? Their members can move forward, they can group up without the fear of that retribution from the MF, but if it's used properly, it can be a very different story.
Yeah, and of course, anytime Altec screws up, he just gets caught by a dredge line, instantly dies. Even if you got a spell shield, Luden's Echo turns it off. So we can watch the other side of that where C9 don't respect it, and lo and behold, obviously Misfortune deals 1.5 million damage.
Right, and the scary thing is you see the Malzahar flash ulting Jensen, and Jensen gets a great double bomb to zone the follow-up from Moon or anything, and from here they can back up, but they instead try to chase in because they were able to live through that initial engage out of FlyQuest, so I think they're out of the woods, but because they're respecting the Malzahar ult and not the MF ult, when they step back in, they get shredded and blown up, which then gives High the ability to go in and start causing trouble as well.
Yeah, and High played this super well, has to be pointed out. He goes forward, forcing the ultimate from Jensen, and then actually times his death mark so that it will kill off Jensen after the ultimate. So that was a nice little mini play there. But yeah, just not respecting the MF ult damage. Like, the difference in team fights is ridiculous.
Yep.
And the second one, C9 was actually more ahead and
Right.
still got blasted like that, because that ultimate can kill your entire team if they actually do get stuck in it.
And even if they do make that mistake, you see that on the side of FlyQuest, they still need to play team fights out well after that. Like, High
Certainly.
can't just go in and go on the first target he sees because there's the Zillion ult still there waiting. So overall, I think both teams had different moments in this game where they played fights well or not. I think the last one where they got the Elder Dragon on the side of C9 was a great example of them playing it really, really well, because they were able to bait out balls where he's just tanking the Elder Dragon and unable to actually get a pick on anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Player of the game, of course, honors go to Jensen, but we're going to first send it down to the blue side for an interview with FlyQuest's mid laner.
Thanks, Freak. I'm here with another interview, of course. Hi, thank you for joining me despite the loss versus Cloud9. An incredibly close, dramatic series. What are your initial thoughts just kind of coming off the Rift?
Well, I felt like we should have won. Game 1, we're up like, 6,000, 7,000, but then we kind of outplayed ourselves. Game 3 is really interesting because, we have that bug bottom. We have to do the remake of 20 seconds back. And it was a really close game. Like, if they didn't get that first Baron, I feel like we'd have won that game because we were playing team fights really well, but it was a hard game.
It certainly wasn't. Coming into this series, did you expect to have such a close series versus Cloud9? Obviously, they look to be the favorites in the league, still undefeated and just having such a strong showing, but your team has been very surprising. Did you think it was going to be close?
Well, I expected us to win, Obviously, I got to go into the game thinking I would win, but I imagined if we did win, it'd only be like a 2-1. They are a good team, so I wasn't expecting to dominate them or anything.
Well, I have to say, FlyQuest do look like a good team as well. I'm sure we've met a lot of fans throughout the weeks, and especially after that series. Want to kind of move it out a little bit more now and just ask you, you do get to play them again in 2 weeks. How are you feeling about the potential rematch, given how close this series was?
I would hope Jensen picks an assassin next time instead of, 3 backline mages. Seems kind of scared, but, it'd be fun if I get to do like Zed versus Fizz, or he does that and I do LeBlanc or Fizz. I think that'd be really fun, but obviously you should play trying to win, and like he did really well in Zillion that game, so.
I know a lot of people in general have a lot of good things to say about you as a leader, but what do you think of your teammates? Because they've had a lot of positive words to say for you, but it seems like you're surrounded by a pretty great team as well.
Well, every part of a team is as important as another. Like, I wouldn't be able to do the things we do in game if my team was bad. Like, if they can't do the calls I ask, if I can't trust them to do what they're supposed to, it's not going to work out, right? So even though I'm making like these very interesting macro plays, it only works out if they're good. Like, if they're pushing up mid and get killed, then that's really bad, but I need to trust them that they can do that, and they can. So it's a team effort,
It makes sense. And just to ask you one last thing, FlyQuest have just done so well, probably better than maybe you guys expected, but certainly better than public perception was. How far can FlyQuest go, given that you played Cloud9 very close? Are you going to take the #1 spot? We'll certainly see you in playoffs at this point. What's the ceiling like for FlyQuest?
Let's say they got lucky this game, this set. We'll just say they got lucked out, but obviously we're going to go to the top. I want to stay where we are right now. We played P1 yesterday. We did well. We played C9 today, and we did really well. Good versus them. I wanted to win, and we're really close to it, but we can't. So then these next 2 weeks, we have hard matches too, and I expect us to play our heart out and hope we can stay at the top.
It seems like you guys always do that. Thank you very much for the interview. Hi, maybe a little bit better luck next time versus Cloud9. Thank you again for joining me despite the loss. Now we're going to go back to Freak to close out the day.
Thanks very much, Pastry. Yeah, and there you go. He wants to play the assassin matchup in the mid lane. That was my takeaway.
I love the casual flame. Well, he seemed a little scared. You have to love it. I mean, win or lose, has a great attitude. He's like, hey, I was expecting to win. We're going to be at the top. I love it.
Yeah, and they showed an extremely strong performance today. I think they showed that they're the more proactive team, and even when they have a disadvantaged team fighting, team comp, that they can still take fights. So really, really good showing out of FlyQuest, and I can expect them to continue to do well the rest of the season.
Yeah, I agree. So in 2 weeks, the rematch, who's going to win it? FlyQuest. I actually agree.
I feel like C9.
Okay.
Yeah, I just think that they didn't look as good as they have the rest of the season, and they still won. Whereas FlyQuest, I thought, looked as good or better than they had in a lot of the season. I think that they played really well and they played to their style really well. Whereas Game 2 C9 was the worst I've seen them all season.
All right, so we'll see C9 level up in week 6, and it's going to be like the clean 2-0 stomping or something. Who knows?
Could be still close.
Could still be close. Either way, it was a great series to be a part of. Let's take a look at who walked away with the most Player of the Game awards in week 4. And it's going to be Moon and Dardoch ending the day with 2 Player of the Games, while Impact, Sneaky, Acadian, and 15 other players got 1 each. And as you get that scoreboard up on your screen there, if we turn over to our split leaderboards, once we're done gawking at how good these players were all week long, well, you can see that Moon is still going to hold the lead with that one. He's got 7 Player of the Game accolades for the entire split. You see that coming up in a little bit here. Impact, Svenskeren, Dardoch, and High are close behind him. And you can see that, yeah, the high impact players, pun maybe intended here, but you can see the FlyQuest has been really much about 2 very, very front and center players with Moon and High.
And not the guy that you would have thought to be leading the league in Player of the Games, and super well deserved too. He has had so many carry performances, and even in their losses, he almost always looks exceptional. I think the Nidalee, this game wasn't his strongest performance, but Evelyn, Kha'Zix, pretty much everything else, he always looks so good. And the couple times he's gotten Rengar, he's smashed too.
Yeah, and I think the nice thing is that it doesn't always have to be Moon and High together doing things, that they can split up and do their own stuff. So it's not just High controlling him or something like that.
And I always love players who are willing to play different things from other people, right? Moon's got like 5, I think, Evelyn games now, and he's still the only one playing it.
Played Nidalee.
I think Kindred maybe wasn't quite as good, but I know you've played some Kindred and you like the champion. I like it too, but yeah, his Evelyn's interesting. I mean, you've got High running around, like, he's bringing out the Zed, like, he'll blind pick it and just, like, throw the challenge down. I think that's all really cool. So, I always have a soft spot for the innovators, and I'm always happy to see players do that kind of stuff, and the champion trades and whatnot. And you're right, some people are dumb enough to give Moon Rengar. I've heard him talk about that in the hallways. Like, I can't believe they did that. That's obviously silly. I'm going to smash everybody when that happens.
Right, and I think Impact is another one who's really high up there, but he actually looked a little shakier to me today, not just in terms of like, oh man, he individually played bad, but I think he got exploited a little bit by FlyQuest in terms of they targeted a lot of ganks to the top side and even some draft strategies at him.
They just had, I think FlyQuest came in with great game plans and they executed well on them. So all credit to them for a close series.
Absolutely. So close series, but it's still C9 winning. So let's take a look at the standings of all of our teams at the end of the week. And it's Cloud9, of course. 8-0, only dropped 4 games, so half those series were 2-0 wins. FlyQuest and TSM close behind Phoenix 1 in a big 3-way tie alongside Immortals and Echo Fox. Counterlogic Gaming only 1 back from that, and then sadly down to the bottom of the table. Team Liquid, but Dignitas with their win have tied them now at 8th place. Unfortunately, Team Envy standing alone 1-7 at the very, very bottom. But it's okay because more matches are coming. We return Friday with more North American LCS, starting off with Team Dignitas. They've got a win finally, the number 2 on the season, up against FlyQuest. Following that is Team Envy still looking to turn something around up against Phoenix 1. They both got 1 in common at this point as far as how the seasons are going. I tied them together. And if that's not enough lead action for you, then turn in on Wednesday for the North American Challengers Series. It's going to be a fun one as well. Mark, I'm pretty sure you're going to be part of that.
I'll be there.
Yep. And maybe one day, Team Envy will. We don't know if they can't turn things around. I don't know.
You already got him,
felt like
freak.
firing shots.
You already got him.
Not for myself, the casters, the analysts, and all the live broadcast crew. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm sorry for being a jerk, but good night. And stay tuned. NA LCS Tonight comes up after this.